The wind on Virella 9 didn't whistle, it howled like a wounded animal, dragging dust and ash across the cratered plains. Charred hulls of drop ships jutted from the ground like twisted bones, and scattered among them were the bodies of the fallen, human and alien alike. Sergeant Elias Ward lay beneath the collapsed wall of an old comms outpost, ribs broken, one leg trapped beneath steel and rock. The taste of copper filled his mouth, and a persistent hum echoed in his ears, fading in and out like a broken signal. He didn't know how long he'd been unconscious. Time was meaningless here, just another casualty of the Council's scorched earth policy. When his eyes fluttered open, the light overhead was dim and flickering. Systems were failing, life support non-existent. A faint red glow bathed the room, casting long shadows over debris and blood-smeared equipment. His breath hitched, not from fear but recognition. He was still alive. Barely. Memory returned in brutal flashes. His squad, Alpha 4, ambushed while trying to extract from Sector 9. They'd been fed false coordinates by an allied Tarsari liaison. Betrayal. That was the last thing he remembered, seeing Collins scream into the comms as the sky opened above them, plasma raining down from Council dreadnoughts. No warning. No mercy. Just silence after the screaming stopped. His hand trembled as he reached across his chest, fingers brushing against his combat harness. The Medigel pack was ruptured, but a few autostims remained intact. He jammed one into his thigh and another into his side, teeth gritted as the drug surged through his system. The pain dulled slightly, enough to move, not enough to forget. With slow, deliberate effort, Elias twisted his body, wincing as his trapped leg protested. Adrenaline was a liar, offering false strength in moments that demanded it and vanishing just when you needed more. Piece by piece, he dug away at the rubble until his boot came free with a crunch and a gasp. He couldn't put weight on it, not yet. But he was mobile. That meant he wasn't done. The world believed he was. The Council's victory broadcast had declared Sector 9 purged. Human resistance annihilated. His name wouldn't be on any memorial wall. No eulogy, no folded flag. Just dust and silence. That thought didn't break him. It steadied him. He crawled through the wreckage, dragging his leg behind him. Fires flickered in the distance, the aftermath of orbital strikes still glowing across the horizon. Bodies lay half-buried in ash. Elias moved past them in silence, noting the insignias, his brothers and sisters. He paused only once, next to a helmet scorched black and caved in. A familiar visor, a familiar name scratched into the inside lip. Reyes. She had saved his life once on Kepler 14, pulling him from a sinking crawler during a firefight. Now, her body was just another marker in the graveyard Virella had become. He set her dog tags beside her and whispered a promise. He didn't say her name aloud. The wind would carry it, and the Council might hear. Further along the broken corridors of the facility, Elias found the old sniper nest where he had spent the first 2 nights of the deployment. The rifle was still there. XM9 Gauss precision. Long, sleek, modified with a grav stabilizer. He ran his fingers over the matte black barrel, familiar and cold. The Council didn't bother stripping the place. Why would they? The war was over, at least in their eyes. He sat against the wall, rifle across his lap, and looked over a shattered data slate. Power flickered once before dying, but it gave him just enough. Partial map overlays, last known enemy patrol paths, and Council fleet positioning. More importantly, it listed names. Commanders, officers, collaborators. He recognized one. General Varkesh. Tarsari. The one who'd ordered the purge. Elias's jaw clenched. Rage did not erupt in him. It simmered, cold and sharp like the knife still strapped to his thigh. He wasn't suicidal. He wasn't delusional. He knew one man couldn't win a war. But one man with a scope and a reason? That could shake foundations. He ate in silence, chewing old rations with mechanical indifference. Pain came in waves, but he welcomed it. It reminded him he was still in the fight. He cleaned the rifle piece by piece, fingers methodical, motions practiced. He moved like someone who had nothing left but purpose. That was enough. When he finally stood, braced on a makeshift crutch and half-hopping toward the outer hatch, he looked once more at the wreckage. He didn't feel sorrow. Not yet. He would mourn later, if there was time. Above him, the twin moons of Virella, 9 carved slivers of silver across the sky. Council patrols hadn't returned in days. They assumed victory, and in their arrogance, they had left a loose thread. They should have known better. A wounded human with a sniper rifle isn't a survivor. He's a harbinger. Elias stepped into the night. The shot rang out like judgment. High on the ridge overlooking the council's forward relay station, Elias adjusted the scope of his XM9 with unhurried precision. He didn't watch the Tarsari officer drop. He didn't need to. The way the soldier's body had arched backward told him everything. Perfect trajectory. Spinal entry. Death before a conscious thought could form. Elias exhaled slowly and eased back into the rocky hollow behind him. Already, council scouts would be scanning the ridge, but they'd find nothing. No heat signature, no footprints. He'd set up a decoy emitter 20 meters north, its power core rigged to short out after 5 minutes. By then, he would be gone. This was his third confirmed kill since crawling out of that crater 3 weeks ago. Each one precise, clean, targeted. Not just soldiers, officers, strategists, command elements, men and women whose hands had shaped Earth's destruction. He tracked them via scavenged logs, overheard comms, and what little the ghosts of the resistance had left behind. He wasn't just hunting. He was orchestrating fear. Elias relocated under cover of darkness, slipping through dry ravines and collapsed mining tunnels, moving like breath in a corpse. His legs still ached, stiff in the cold, but the engineer he'd freed a week prior had modified his brace with council-grade polymers. In exchange, Elias had given her coordinates to a smuggler's pickup route. He didn't want loyalty, just silence. At the edge of an abandoned colony, he paused. An old mural covered a wall half-eaten by vines, children beneath a sun that no longer rose here. Their painted eyes had faded, but their smiles remained, defiant in decay. Elias stared for a moment, then moved on. News of the kills had begun to echo in the channels. Council broadcasts downplayed them as isolated resistance flare-ups, but field chatter told another story. Troops talked of the ghost of Virella, a phantom marksman whose bullets came without sound, without warning. Some claimed it was a machine. Others, a cursed remnant of humanity's rage. Elias didn't care what they believed, only that they feared. His next target was on Darnex 4, a lush moon recently converted into a council logistics base. General Threxon, one of Varkesh's lieutenants, was rumored to be inspecting the forward barracks there. The drop would be difficult. Low orbit, stolen transport, no backup. But Elias didn't hesitate. He only needed one clean line of sight. The shuttle he commandeered was an old freighter, patched together with scrap and held aloft more by hope than engineering. He bribed the pilot with contraband whiskey and the assurance he wouldn't be followed. Once above Darnex 4, he leapt from the cargo hold, gliding in on a silent gravechute, landing in the jungle a kilometer from the outpost. Rain poured in sheets, thick, warm, and relentless. His camo adjusted, bleeding his form into the green. Crawling through mud and roots, he reached a vantage point overlooking the compound. Threxon's insignia glinted in the artificial light as he paced among his soldiers. Elias dialed in his scope, heart calm, breath shallow. A countdown formed in his head, not of seconds, but of patterns. Set, turn, pause, raise datapad, blink, now. He fired. The general collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. Screams followed, alarms blaring, spotlights scanning trees that held nothing but leaves and ghosts. Elias withdrew, fading into the storm. By morning, he was gone. That night, across 6 systems, the image of Threxon's corpse, chest opened by a precision shot, circulated among resistance networks. Attached was a message, voice encoded and untraceable. "You should have buried me deeper." Elias listened to the broadcast from a cave in the cliffs above an acidic lake. The voice didn't even sound like him anymore, hoarse, metallic, stripped of softness. He hadn't looked in a mirror since Virella. He didn't need to. He remembered who he had been. It just didn't matter anymore. The council ramped up patrols. Drone swarms swept regions for signs of the ghost. They executed suspected collaborators, burned forests, glassed villages. Each move bred resentment. Elias didn't fight back directly. He didn't have to. He only needed to light sparks, and let the council's fear do the rest. But vengeance was not without weight. He dreamt of Reyes sometimes, of Collins's last transmission, of Earth's skyline melting under orbital fire. These weren't dreams, really, just memories that hadn't stopped bleeding. He saw them when he blinked, felt them in the cracks of his bones. There were moments he wanted to stop, to let the ache take him. But then he would find another name. Another commander who'd smiled as humanity burned. Another chance to remind the galaxy that humans were not forgotten. The final name on his list had surfaced 2 days prior, General Varkesh himself, the Butcher of Earth. He was en route to the central spire on Korvax Prime for a strategic summit. Untouchable, surrounded by fleets and security grids. But Elias wasn't planning on getting in. He was planning on making Varkesh come out. As he prepared for the journey, cleaning his rifle under the flicker of a stolen lantern, Elias allowed himself one luxury. He carved another tally into the stock. 7 lines, deep and straight. Not for the kills. For the fallen. Each mark a name, a voice, a reason. He whispered them once, then fell silent. Tomorrow, he would begin the last phase. And when it was done, the council would remember why leaving one human alive was never a mistake. It was a death sentence. Elias stood atop the ridge overlooking Korvax Prime's orbital spire, his silhouette lost in the shimmer of the planet's atmosphere. The sniper rifle lay across his chest, its black frame humming softly, barrel extended for long-range stabilization. Below, the sprawling city complex pulsed with light, glimmering domes, towering antennae, and the arrogant heart of the Galactic Council's central command. They believed they were safe here, that no human could ever get this close again. They were wrong. 3 days earlier, Elias had hijacked a diplomatic transport en route to a neutral science colony. The passengers had been left unharmed, gagged and sedated in the forest outside the launch zone. He didn't care about them. He only needed their clearances and a window to the surface. Once grounded, he moved like a shadow, infiltrating the city's underbelly using maintenance shafts, old smuggler routes, and disused sewers the council had long forgotten. Each step brought him closer to the summit site. Varkesh's arrival was marked with military fanfare. Towering banners bearing the council crest unfurled, gunships hovered like steel vultures, and thousands of loyalists lined the plaza in coordinated formation. Cameras hovered in the air, broadcasting the pomp across 100 worlds. Varkesh stood tall on the landing platform, his blue-scaled skin polished, medals draped across his chest, expression proud. A hero, they called him. The man who ended the human conflict. Elias watched through his scope, unmoving. He could have fired then. Could have ended it. But this wasn't about a kill. It was about message, precision, timing. He needed the last thing Varkesh saw to be a reckoning, not a blur. He waited. When the summit began, Varkesh and his delegation ascended the tower. Elias moved in tandem, navigating the skyscraper's hidden levels through elevator shafts and abandoned service ducts. He timed his ascents with power cycles, memorized guard rotations, and rerouted cameras using scavenged access chip. No mistakes. No improvisation. Each step was part of a path drawn weeks ago in his mind. At the pinnacle of the tower, a crystalline dome housed the summit chamber. Council delegates sat in circular formation around a suspended platform, discussing border policies, resource shares, and pirate insurgencies. No mention of Earth. No memory of the ashes they had scattered. Elias lay prone on a narrow support beam just below the dome's rim. He sighted Varkesh through his scope, flanked by guards, laughing softly at a joke one of the Nalkiri admirals had whispered. Elias adjusted the rifle, his finger resting on the trigger. He took a breath. Then everything went dark. A power fluctuation surged through the spire. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in red. Confused shouts echoed, followed by orders and scrambling guards. Elias knew this would happen. He had triggered the overload remotely 10 minutes earlier, using a timed frequency pulse spliced into the building's maintenance relay. Now came the moment. A single shot cut through the chamber's confusion. Varkesh jerked as the round tore through his chest, clean and perfect, severing the artificial heart beneath his armor. He stumbled back, eyes wide in disbelief, mouth opening to speak but forming no words. His guards rushed forward too late. He collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. Elias was already gone. He descended the tower's exterior using a mag-rig harness, vanishing into the storm gutters just as panic spread through the city. Security grids locked down. Gunships took flight. But there was nothing to find, no trace, no digital signature, no heat trail. Only silence and the echo of that single, damning shot. That night, a transmission spread across council frequencies. Untraceable, raw, spoken in a voice weathered by fire and time. This was never vengeance. This was remembrance. You burned our world. You buried our people. You left me breathing. That was your mistake. The council tried to suppress it, tried to erase the footage, block the signals. But the words had already passed into the hands of dissidents, rebels, and those who remembered what the council had done. Whispers became declarations. Minor uprisings exploded into coordinated strike. Species once subjugated under fear began to resist. Not because of Elias, but because his bullet proved the council could bleed. In a ruined observation bunker on a frozen moon far from Korvax Prime, Elias sat by a dwindling fire, cloak pulled tight around his shoulders. His face was hollow, thinner, beard marked with frost. The mission was done. The names on his list were gone. Yet the weight hadn't left him. It pressed deeper, heavier now that there was nothing to balance it against. He held the rifle across his knees, running a cloth along its frame with slow, reverent motions. Every scratch told a story. Every mark, a name. He hadn't saved humanity, but he had reminded the galaxy what it meant to be human. A quiet ping echoed from a salvaged comm device beside him. An encrypted channel. The voice was rough, female, cautious. This is Echo Division. If you're out there, the signal reached us. There are still colonies. Still fighters. We want to talk. Elias stared at the message. Then leaned back, closing his eyes. He hadn't expected hope. But maybe, just maybe, that was the next shot to take. The stars above the Echo Division's rendezvous point were colder than Elias remembered. They flickered like distant fires, unreachable and faint, scattered across the void of the Axiom expanse. He sat in the cargo hold of the old freighter that had picked him up 2 weeks ago, a dull ache in his leg and a quiet tension behind his ribs that hadn't gone away since Korvax Prime. Around him, crates of salvaged weapons and ration packs rocked with the ship's subtle drift. In the silence, he could hear the hum of the fusion core. Familiar. Steady. He hadn't spoken much during the journey. There wasn't much to say. The 2 Echo operatives who'd met him on the icy moon, Leah and Dren, knew better than to pry. They flew in shifts, shared supplies, spoke softly when necessary. Elias appreciated that. Words had become brittle things. Too many times he'd watched them fail. Now, parked in orbit above an uncharted jungle moon, they prepared to land at what Leah called the Redoubt, the largest known human stronghold left in the galaxy. A hidden bunker city buried beneath layers of thick canopy, old tectonic mining shafts, and 1,000 decoys built to confuse orbital scans. It wasn't much, but it was something. Leah stepped into the hold, brushing grease from her fingers with a rag. Her eyes were sharp, dark, always watching. "We'll be planetside in 5, she said. "You sure you're ready for this?" Elias didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood, bracing on the bulkhead before slinging the rifle over his shoulder. His leg still twinged when he moved, but he didn't limp anymore. He looked at Leah, and there was no trace of the sniper who once drifted alone through ruined worlds. Only a soldier with unfinished business. "I'm not here to lead," he said finally. "Just to finish what started." Leah gave a single nod, then turned back toward the cockpit. The redoubt was a marvel of desperation and ingenuity. Hidden beneath ancient wreckage and vines, it opened like a scar in the earth. Massive steel doors parted to reveal an interior of flickering lights, repurposed wartech and people, dozens of them, young, old, hardened by survival. Children played beside engineers who whispered over consoles. Farmers carried hydroponic trays past guards with rusted rifles. And as Elias walked through it all, every eye followed him. He was a myth to them. The ghost of Virella. The sniper who made the council bleed. But he didn't feel like a legend. He felt exhausted. Every step through the redoubt peeled back memories he wasn't ready to relive. Faces of fallen squadmates, the shriek of plasma fire, Rhea's voice crackling through comms one last time. Ghosts of a past that never truly died. In the command chamber, he met them, Echo's real leadership. Captain Rowe, once a Marine commander during the siege of Mars. Engineer Kieran, who had helped build the first resistance beacons. And others, faces both wary and hungry. Hungry for something more than survival. Hungry for retribution. For justice. For direction. They didn't ask for speeches. They just asked one question. What now? Elias looked around the room. There were no grand fleets. No planetary defenses. Just ragged survivors and their fire. Yet they had built something the Council had failed to stamp out. He stepped forward and laid the rifle on the table. "Now," he said, "we teach them what it means to fear again." A murmur spread through the room, cautious, electric. Kieran leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "You're not just talking about strikes. You want coordinated sabotage? Disruption campaigns?" Elias nodded. "The Council's fractured. They're covering their wounds, not expanding. They still think this war is over. That's our edge. We don't hit where they're strong. We bleed them from the inside, power grids, supply chains, communications. We turn the cracks into fractures. And we do it fast." Captain Rowe stepped closer. "That kind of network takes resources." "I'll get them," Elias said. "I still have contacts. Smugglers, old alliances. Even a few ex-council agents who know what side to fear now." Leah watched him, arms folded, a half-smile tugging at her lips. "You're not done hunting, are you?" "No," Elias said. "I'm just changing the scope." That night, in a quiet bunk just off the main barracks, Elias lay in silence. For the first time in years, he felt something beneath the pain, something unfamiliar and sharp. Hope. He turned over and stared at the low metal ceiling. The war wasn't won. The galaxy was still hostile. But he wasn't alone anymore. The Council had made one fatal error in their campaign of domination. Not the glassing of Earth. Not the betrayal on Virella. They had left one human alive. And now there were hundreds more ready to rise.